Good morning, everybody. John Spielpa here for GAI Insights, bringing you your generative AI and AI news, rating the top news, essential, important, or optional, putting thoughts in your head and time in your day. We got lots going on here. We got Gemini 2.0, broader distribution. We have artificial analysis, state of the AI, artificial analysis of state of AI in China, and everything in between. Today we have Adam, Luda, Ankash, and yours truly. All right. Let's head into this first one, Gemini 2.0. Adam, where do you land on this one?
Ankash, go ahead and introduce us.
Oh, yes.
Thanks, Adam.
Sorry, Ankash.
Yeah. No worries, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from Google, and it talks about Gemini 2.0 and their new model.
Adam?
Oh, over to me? Yeah, thanks, John. So they're new models, I would say, and I think this is important news. It's important to be aware of the continuing developments. I know in some ways it feels like, great, they're keeping up, and there are some important developments they've just announced, which with the latest news from OpenAI and other competitors, it's important that they continue to do that. But specifically for people that are still, well, in general, I recommend people don't vendor lock, and to be aware of what's come out here. There's a suite of offerings basically that have come to light in the news today. So I'll cover it briefly, but I think it's important for our listeners. So they already, just over the last month and a half, they started what they call their agentic era with Gemini 2.0 Flash being like really fast. And so then they had Flash Thinking, which was a really fast performance model, but that had some of that reasoning that we see in like OpenAI's GPT-o1, these new reasoning models. So they were already doing that. And now as of today, first of all, that they have a Flash model that's now available for everyone. They also have a Gemini 2.0 Pro, not Flash. So this is like their more robust, stronger one. This is not a reasoning model, though. So the important thing is don't compare it to 0.1 or 0.3. Compare it to like GPT 4.0, just as the general everyday workhorse, and it stands up quite well on its own. They've also made the 2.0 Flash model available generally now. It used to only be available in the app. And this is a big deal because it means developers can start using Flash through the API and actually building apps with it. So that's good news there. The Pro is still experimental, so it hasn't been fully rolled out. I believe right now it's available to people who have the subscription or are using it through the Vertex AI or the Google Studio. But then there's also a Flash Lite, which is even more performant than the previous Lite model they had, but is very, very cost efficient. So they say for this one, for example, if you wanted to write a one-line caption for 40,000 photos, that would cost you less than $1. So it gives you some idea of them competing across the full landscape of the very fast, cost-efficient models that have good reasoning, all the way up to the really, really strong reasoning models and the ones that are the multi-purpose. So across the board, a lot of news. The 2.0 Flash is also 2 million token length, which is significant, particularly for developers. There's a really cool site. If you go to GitHub for any project, but instead you change hub to ingest, it will take all of the code and make it one single string of text so that you can give it to an LLM and give it all of the code from a project. But most of these models can't ingest it because it'll easily get up to 1 million, bordering on 2 million tokens for this entire code base. So having a model that can ingest 2 million and has the capabilities as a really strong development tool is a big deal. So I think it's important news.
Well, it sounds like essential news from your description.
At the same time, it's them keeping up and competing. And if people are already making decisions about their vendor or they're comparing the market, they're going to be across what's going on in terms of OpenAI and Anthropic and other people. So something to be aware of, but it may not actually affect any of their decision making.
Okay, Luda, where do you land on this one?
I agree with Adam. It's important news. As one of the top AI labs that compete in this space, I think it's important that leaders know the breadth of Google offerings. And I find that it is a great place where developers can experiment with the long context window, with the smaller models, with the speed, with the performance. So it's now a spectrum of things of models that you can play with. So it's important news.
All right, but not essential.
Not essential. No.
Paul, where do you land on this? And welcome. We're going important.
Good with important.
All right, important it is. Ankaj, next.
Okay, the next one comes from OpenAI, and it talks about how OpenAI and California State University are bringing AI to 500,000 students and faculty.
Yeah, so Luda, what do you think here? Reinvention of education?
Yeah, I really, really applaud OpenAI and California University doing this. I mean, this is great. And from my perspective, every actual university and every educational institution should do this. So OpenAI has this EDU model that they released, and now all of the personnel at the university will be playing with it. And there's these things that they're saying they will be doing with it, right? That like coaching, the teaching and learning, the using it for administration things. So it's and I mean, the sky is the limit here. So I applaud it very, very much, but I think it's probably optional for our leaders.
All right, I was going to make the case for important because of the effect I think that a lot of people aren't talking enough about inside corporations is the learning effect and the teaching effect that these models have. And, that's huge to competitive advantage in many fields, if not all. So anyway, I was going to make the case for important. What do you think here, Paul?
I'm actually on the other side of important or essential. I think what companies need to understand is your secure employee chatbot is a direct reflection on your brand for attracting and recruiting employees. So when I graduated from CSU and I've been using all these tools and I go to work for company X and 5% of employees have access to secure employee chatbot, it's silly. So I think that's one. I think second is change management. I've concluded now my monkey brain. Change management's the same at companies and at universities, but having wide availability is the start of change management to get people to start using it. And John, what you and I've seen at within Harvard Business School, what happens is once these students start getting the EDU thing here, they start popping up the GPTs that are specific to the university. Everyone starts using them for classes and everything else, which is just going to have those autodidactic students explode here. So I'm on important or essential here for the AI leader.
So, Paul, just to say that essentially what the graduates that will be coming up, they will be skilled, and the companies need to prep for that level. So to be able to offer those tools to the new graduates, that's kind of the message.
Well, and I want. I mean, we're at a board meeting next week. I want to talk to the VP of people saying, how are you guys messaging to your recent college grads about your secure employee chatbot? Are you getting questions on that? Are there differentiating things out here? To me, it's the exact same thing in the early days of sustainability reports, where EMC was losing engineers because they didn't have a sustainability thing. And that's why Karen Winkler got assigned to be the first VP of sustainability in all America, because they were losing candidates because of this.
Yeah, I mean, Vivek certainly agrees with you, Paul, in terms of essential. And Kevin, raised the issue about, will students continue to learn, or will they just get lazy with these materials? Kevin, you remind me of an old joke in academia, which is students are the only customers who want less for their money. Anyway,
but John, I think not the best students. And I think the thing that we see so many times is when you give AI to highly confident subject matter experts, sales reps or coders, they think they know everything. But when you give these tools to people who are coming up the career curve, they embrace them like crazy here. So
yeah, no question. Look, who knows? Maybe I'll go back and teach some at HBS. But if I do, there's no question in my mind that building robots is going to be part of my course. It's a no-brainer. And you have to teach people how to use robots and then how to build, and then give them some. Busgang's doing some of that. Some of the other. I know our friend Anand Rao down at Carnegie Mellon is doing this in his courses, right? Both building the robots for the kids, and then they can take them with them, and then of course they need the ability, to go from there.
Yeah, and I actually just saw a report someplace that talked about the experts embracing it at much better, the real experts embracing the AI much better than sort of the middle folks. So it's probably would vary over time. Yeah. Okay.
All right, we're headed for essential. Essential it is. All right. Next, Ankaj.
Next one comes from MIT, and it talks about how with GenAI, MIT chemists are quickly calculating 3D genomic structures.
Yeah, Paul, what do you think here?
I thought very interesting. I think it's optional. My vote's optional. I was at MIT yesterday with John Ward and others. It's breathtaking the talent that university has, but for AI leader, optional. Very interesting, but optional.
Yeah, I was going to make the case for important. I mean, this is the ability to manipulate DNA and genes and so forth is something so fundamental to many industries, whether you're in the oil industry or the agriculture industry or biotechnology and so forth. Again, important is not required reading. I just think that this is a breakthrough that, is very deep. It's like AlphaFold, I mean, it's like just huge. I think it's going to have huge implications. And certainly if you're in biopharma or agriculture, you gotta understand this stuff like right now. Anyway, interesting.
But John, is an everyday miracle on the research side? I mean, it's a research paper.
Yeah, but about what? About DNA? I mean, there's things you can research and there's things you can research. DNA is pretty central.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. But for our reader, it's really optional. It's an everyday miracle. Agree, totally. Great subject, great topic, absolutely, but optional. So we can't. I mean, there's so many miracles. We can't put them all as important.
There aren't many that are at the level of DNA.
That's
Adam?
true.
So I was optional, and I saw that in the pre-game John had rated its importance. So I actually went to the robot and challenged it on why this could be important news, and it had an interesting piece of insight that I think swayed me. So I'll try and make the case here. It's not that it's about genomics, but that it's actually really beyond genomics. And that what they did is it's a deep learning based simulation. And the examples GPT gave me was it could be applied in pharmaceuticals, material science, but also interestingly like cybersecurity and financial modeling. So it actually, the scope of conceptually what's being done here actually applies quite broadly across many different industries, which I think made it an interesting article for that case. Probably still on the fence, but John has the chalk and he
but Adam, you bring up a point on we call Echo our AI agents. If not, we need to bring her more into these conversations because it's a great use of asking the robots.
Absolutely. All right. On behalf of the robot, I'm giving this important. All right. Next.
I think we'll end up with all importance and essentials today. Okay.
It's okay.
The next one.
That's why we're here.
Yes. Yeah. The next one talks about understanding reasoning LLMs.
Yeah. What do you think here, Adam?
Well, I hate to say it, but I think this is an essential read. Over the last week, we've seen a lot of articles about reasoning models, and we've had a lot of discussions about the importance for the AI leader to be very successful in their job and to be a really solid leader in this time is to have a little bit more depth and technical understanding of how these things work. And I think this article is the one that we actually should be recommending people take the time to read. It covers it at length. It's very clear, and it really gets into the details to help people understand what the big deal is, but more importantly, how it works. So I was considering it essential.
Yeah, I was in similar territory. I think this writer is particularly insightful. Really well laid out. For my money, uh, walks that fine line between overly technical and not technical enough, and explains it, I think, in a very approachable
While
way.
telling a good story. Yeah.
Yeah, and the illustrations are helpful. The whole routine. So I was leaning toward essential as well. Paul, I'm sure you're going to come in on optional here, like mega optional.
No,
How's this going to put money on the bottom line? That kind
no, Luda, we've been usually beating the hell out of the optional articles. I want to beat the hell out of this essential article. I mean, two things I've seen the last 2 weeks is one is that things have changed so fast, and most people, and I've seen this in leaders as well, don't understand. I can't believe I'm calling them traditional LLM models versus reasoning ones. And I think when you start seeing the reasoning models and saying, how can these models eliminate or enhance employees who are earning more than $100,000 a year, you really start seeing the impact of it. And then you put in the deep research for $200 a month, and you're at a whole nother level here. So I think it's really important that leaders understand the impact of reasoning and be able to articulate it to executives and in budget discussions. So essential in my view.
All right, Luda.
Yeah, John, one point here. I agree with essential. I think it's worth a read, and it's the right balance of technical and not. One point that this article spells out that we haven't really covered is the technique of distillation that we will see much more of. And that is picking up the results out of a huge LLM and feeding it into the smaller, well-performing models, right? And to make them smarter and getting them some reasoning capabilities and a more tuned base. So he covers it not very deeply, but he covers it. And I think it's an important thing to highlight to our audience. And yeah.
Little, keep going. It's important because of the indemnification issues or the bias issues or the fairness issues.
It is important that you can get a small LLM, like for example, you're working on putting a mobile app, right, based on a small LLM. So you could actually beef it up in performance and quality of output by taking a large LLM and distilling it to that base of knowledge that you are interested in. So putting it right in, so you get a way higher quality, higher performance thing on your mobile device. So this is the value.
Yeah, I think the whole thing about distillation, as you say, is going to be huge. Obviously, what we know about neuroscience is humans do a similar thing, right? You begin to automate and put things. The whole 10,000 hours thing about being an expert, has a lot to do with getting past active cognitive activity, and but really relying on the nature of your neurology to be able to see patterns and so forth at a different level. Back in the ancient days of symbolic AI, there's this whole thing called knowledge engineering, which was trying to get at those things that were quote unquote distilled, in human minds. So interesting. Yeah, fantastic here. All right, we're going essential.
Yeah, John. Ankaj, if you can scroll up just a little bit, it's number 4 there that you just scrolled past about distillation. Yeah, just go up until you see the heading of this section. There you go. So if they just read this right here, because it discusses the inference time scaling, the pure reinforcement learning, the super fine tuning plus reinforcement learning, and then says, so what's left? And to your question, Paul, and Luda's point, there is a whole nother concept here that isn't getting a lot of press, and it's an important one.
Correct.
And that's model distillation. So
yeah, it's a huge.
This right here makes is a really, really important point in and of itself in the article.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we should find a good article on Kaj
about distillation
review.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that makes a ton of sense. It's funny. The image in my mind is that we have this massive hive mind, which is learning. We just had a grandchild about 3 months ago, and how your mind trims off billions and billions of neurons, as you get to the patterns of reality that we use. And it's kind of the image in my mind is the silicon mind is kind of doing that. And it's an infinite, and all this stuff's happening. And it's starting to distill down into different insights and capabilities. All right, next.
Before you go, John, we have a pushback from Lucinda on the MIT article. Just wanted to mention. So she's saying that if we rate it as important, what can we learn from this, and how can we translate it to the non-genomic industry? An interesting point that we deal with all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think Adam made the case for it, or the robot made the case for it through Adam, that this particular deep learning model can be used in other areas. The other thing is that there's not much that genomics doesn't touch. I mean,
that's true.
I mean,
Okay.
Living, dying, eating, energy. Other than that, so that to me is a good one. But and listen to saying yes on the thing. Another thing Kevin was saying about this notion of education, skills gap, number one obstacle to AI success in the professional sphere. Completely agree. And anyway, that's another whole conversation, Kevin, about the lack of investment back in talent inside organizations, which I think has largely been driven by the narrow short-term profitability measures of EBITDA, and have squished out a lot of developmental activity inside organizations. But it's coming back, I hope. Anyway, next, Ankash.
The next one we have is a research paper which talks about chain of associated thought framework for enhancing large language models reasoning.
All righty. Luda, what'd you think here?
I loved the concept. I think it's optional for our reader. I'll tell you why. Couple of points. It's coming from 360. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. QWho 360. That's a company with an interesting history. They started in 2005. They in security. And they started in 2005, went public in 2011 on New York Stock Exchange. We're taking back private in 5 years from there. And now they're into models. So that's fascinating trajectory. So they have a lot of understanding, especially on the security side. So what they are offering here is a chain of associated thoughts framework. So trying to mimic how as we think, we actually bring various associations to mind when we reason or imagine something, right? And that's a useful skill. So they put a framework together, and then tell us that essentially this works much better. It catches on the qualitative way much more reasoning. And quantitatively, it appears that it does well, even though they don't tell us that. There are no numbers in the article, and that's why I thought it was optional. So it's still in development, but a powerful concept. Think about it. If we could do that in the models, I think it will certainly enhance the reasoning level.
Yeah, you just said what I would have said. So well said.
Oh,
Adam.
wow.
Except I wouldn't have said it as well. How about that? Paul, Adam, you guys are on optional?
Am I in a parallel universe, Adam? This humbleness from John Sfiokla? John, your robot's hallucinating. No, I support the discussion.
Hey, so I just actually found a great article from just last week on the Wall Street Journal about distillation. I've put it in the chat. I won't be on the call tomorrow night, but let's definitely put that on the docket. It gets into DeepSeek and some of the stuff that's been going on in that landscape, and specifically around how distillation plays into it. So it should be a good read.
All right, we're going optional here. You okay with that, Paul? I mean, Adam?
Yeah.
All righty. Optional it is. Ankash, take us home with the ultimate article.
So the last one that we have for today comes from China, and it talks about what's the state of AI in China.
Yeah, I thought this for me I was going to go important, just because China obviously is such an important market to understand. I think this lays out beautifully, how the Chinese have essentially closed the performance gap over the past, let's say 8 quarters or 6 quarters. And the focus on this, I think it lays out, different models, who has, what kind of performance share, and who the big players are, both the existing hyperscalers as well as new folks coming in with less venture capital and less investment, at least as far as we know, into the fray. So I was going to give it an important. What do you think, Paul?
I had this important as well. I think that the really interesting dynamic that's going on here, and I think I can center it within the secure employee chatbot discussion we keep having, where companies are choking on $20 to $60 a month. If companies can get a world-class model that their security people are comfortable that it's doesn't phone home, have malicious content in it, and it's coming from China and it's inside my trusted hyperscaler, AWS and Microsoft, this is a fantastic way to get advanced reasoning intelligence capability to my employees, earning more than 100,000, all my employees. So I think it's a really important trend, and I think it leans in more on how do I get comfortable with wherever that source is of that open source model and identification. So definitely important.
All right, Luda, where are you on this?
Yeah, I think if you scroll down, there's lots of interesting tidbits here about how many of those are open source, what the performance is. You could put in your own model that you like and see where it stacks in versus others. So there's some tools to play with, which is a great source. So yeah, I agree with important, and I think to the issue, Paul, that you mentioned, it's also important to understand what is open source, how do you prevent your data from leaking, where do you put it. This is all calls for action here.
And 2 data points. I won't use the company's name, but John, you and I were at that peer networking dinner, and there was a major pharmaceutical company that's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with their employee chatbot that's closed system. And then the other one I know I don't want to use a name. They had a pilot with Copilot. Now they're rolling out OpenAI Enterprise Chat, and I think that's a $500,000, $1 million investment just for the first set of employees here. So, how I start thinking about alternatives, regardless of where they are, is a really, really important thing for leaders to be aware of.
Yeah.
All righty. All right, Ankaj.
Just if I had certainly never heard of that website before, artificialanalysis.ai.
Yeah, me either.
They have just a wealth of data as well as great visualizations for it. So definitely worth checking that out as well.
And tools, Adam, like you can take a couple of LLMs and compare their performance. Fascinating.
Wonderful. So big reading day today. We have 2 essentials on the California state and the reinvention of education, and then understanding reasoning with the LLMs, and lots of importance. Only one optional here, chain of associated thoughts framework, which would have been important if it had a little more data. All right, big reading day here. Any announcements or anything for our audience?
John, you want to share just a little bit about what Seeker is? They've sponsored our daily newsletter, and they're going to be at the Learning Lab on Monday.
They're a wonderful vendor that has basically helped. I think of them as managing the data value chain through model creation. And so they have tools that help you take your data, standardize it, improve it, also create synthetic data if you need it. It's very easy to reflect what your guidelines and principles are. They have a notion that historically they call principle alignment, which is basically how do you reflect your principles in the actual behavior of the model, and makes it very easy to go from raw data to deployed models and to manage those on an ongoing basis. So they're happy to have them as a sponsor coming up, and just a wonderful piece of technology in the Gen AI platform. Paul, did I leave anything important out there?
No, that's it. And well, other than I think they're really focused on getting value of unstructured data for enterprises in a secure way. So that's really the main focus.
And making it explainable, traceable, so that you can go back and explain and yeah, where it came from.
Great. Anything else? All right. See everybody tomorrow, except for you, Adam. We'll get you covered. Thanks for the pointer. See everybody tomorrow morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you come into us. Bye-bye now.